greatest invasion in all history. 1 million veterans pouring onto the college campuses of America, from Harvard to Stanford, from State to Siwash, to more than 1,300 universities and colleges and junior colleges, where 1 million students were already enrolled, come 2 million young people, mostly veterans, who believe it's smart to be educated, pursuing the library and laboratory secrets of philosophy or paleontology or the nature of the atom, registering for every course and credit in the catalog. An academic crusade inspired by the GI Bill of Rights. There never was such a mass movement towards higher education. It's been called the greatest social end, for it may abolish that constant post-war problem, the so-called lost generation. But what did this boom do to the campus? For our answer, let's go to Syracuse University, a dynamic center of higher education in central New York State. 17 schools and colleges, coeducational and democratic. Imposing buildings whose Victorian and Methodist towers look down on squat, ugly utilitarian shacks, half garrison, half mining camp, built in a style of architecture classically described as Boomtown Byzantine, a campus built for 6,000 students, swarming with more than twice that many, and with every indication of more to come next year and next, perhaps 15,000 by 1950. But this is not the country club college of the 20s with its pipe courses and its raccoon coats. This is education the hard way, and they don't give extra credits because the campus has holes in it. Your idea of college is dear old Ivy Tower, a serene and elegant campus of marble halls and Gothic windows, then this is not for you, not this year. Syracuse has proud and rich traditions, but now the accent is on the greatest need of the greatest number. Here, education is catch as catch can, close combat in the battle of wits, and there are times when it seems to have the distractions of an assembly line in a boiler factory. This is the big parade oration. Here are the leaders of tomorrow on their way to leadership. Not boys and girls, but young adults with a goal in view and the will and character to reach it despite obstacles. When they came knocking at the gates, the university bade them welcome, as many as could be accommodated. Classes were big, crowded, and it was feared the quality of work would suffer. But soon it was discovered the quality of work was rising to new all-time highs, with the veterans leading the way. They are setting a new pace, a swifter tempo. They must study like they eat, cafeteria style, because they are 3 or 4 years late through no fault of their own. Their country had summoned them in an hour of national peril, had sent them to the ends of the earth to fight for a free world. Now they are home to enjoy some of its benefits. From the start, the veterans endeared themselves to the faculty by their adult, earnest approach to work. Yet the boom was not entirely good news to the overworked, underpaid, long-suffering teachers. They had hoped for a return to normalcy, having been under constant pressure since the fall of 1942, when the Army and Navy took over the American colleges for specialist training. Now here was the toughest assignment of all, with more students to worry about and mountains of papers to mark. Yet here too was the long-awaited dream of educators, the chance to lift the educational level of a whole generation at once. For the university, it was opportunity too, though it seemed like a series of headaches. Biggest headache was housing, shelter for the 6,000 added guests who came to dinner and stayed to browse in the library. At Syracuse, Chancellor William P. Tully and his planners knew the situation called for bold, aggressive action. The government had housing, acres of it, no longer needed. Haul it in, set it up in this broad valley. Quonset huts, barracks, dining halls, trailers. Apply the methods of war, get first things done first. Some are pretty flimsy, but if they last 5 years, that's enough. There are $6 million worth of temporary structures scattered over this landscape. $2 billion worth on all of America's campuses. The effect isn't pretty, but this is a boom. Somehow, the campus has managed to keep its character, and America was able to keep its promise to the veteran. That promise, embodied in the GI Bill of Rights, was that our youth should not be penalized for having served cause and country, but should be offered education for civilian life at public expense. This could be at an approved college, or in special schools, or as apprenticeship in trade. It is a vast undertaking to execute it. Elaborate machinery is set up to help the veteran make the most of his opportunity. He may be willing, but confused. Where would a good tail gunner fit? What chance of becoming a doctor if a fellow is 25 with 3 kids, not yet finished high school? If he needs advice, skilled counselors are assigned to compile his assets and focus his interests. There are aptitude tests for things like manual dexterity to avoid getting round pegs in square holes. For no one is admitted, regardless of his battle ribbons, who is not capable of maintaining the standards of the university. Of course, after all these precautions to get the veteran on the right track, he sometimes finds it is the running track above the gymnasium floor, a cozy spot for a cot. Or he might be assigned to one deck of a double-decker in a loft, as good a place as any to learn that the pen is mightier than a submachine gun. It's the sort of place the GI had to get used to many times in service. With study space at a premium, work goes on in the barracks.
Attention!
Space here costs $18 a month, within the range of the $65 the government allows single veterans for maintenance. Oh, it isn't college life the way Uncle George pictured it. This looks more like the Army, but there's a difference. There's no compulsion, no bugle, no sergeant. A fellow washes his shirt only because he prefers to have it clean. He shaves or lets his beard grow as he pleases. In short, he may behave here like a high-spirited, light-hearted, and personable young gentleman in pursuit of knowledge, or if he chooses, as if he were brought up in a barn. As it happens, this is a barn, or was. All kinds of buildings were sworn in as temporary dormitories, hospitals, houseboats, factories, many of them miles from the classrooms, accessible only by special bus. But arrived at the campus, a magical transformation occurs. The discomforts of barracks life fade. The student sniffs the air of college life. His feet tread the paths generations of students have trod. He feels a kinship with those who have gone before. He finds it exciting to discover that 23 centuries ago, a scholar named Thucydides was pondering the same tangle of politics and economics that haunts us today. But even more stimulating are the cordial contacts with his own generation, the beginning of friendships, the getting together with other good fellows in minor harmonies, the pleasant conviviality off campus, in the fashion of young gentlemen and scholars through the centuries. For the game with Colgate, campus festivity sweeps to a high point with traditional mummery and merrymaking. What could be more important than to promenade to the big game, a lively girl on your arm? But there are some traditions of college life that the veteran finds irksome. For instance, the one about freshmen wearing little dinky caps. Oh, sure, it says so in the book, but it doesn't go down with men who have survived the hazing of beachheads, bombing missions, and battle stations. Yes, the old rule books hardly seem to fit the million men who went to college at war's end. Some feared that men trained to kill and destroy might be lawless. On the contrary, they have proved the best behaved students, courteous, respectful, self-disciplined adults here on serious business. Some have good reason for being serious, such as Junior, the little night owl. Here is the most remarkable change in the campus scene. Pre-war tradition said marriage and college were incompatible. Campuses were built for bachelors and maids. The student who took a wife was promptly kicked out as a disgrace to scholarship and alma mater. But the vets brought wives and babies with them. Tradition took another licking. Homework for the married student includes some painful mathematics related to the cost of living. In addition to the $500 a year for tuition, books, and fees, the married veteran gets $90 a month for maintenance. But even with rigid economy, that isn't enough. Hence this grimmest of family conferences on budget. The average family finds living costs run about $150 a month. The trailer camp in Mud Hollow is a community of 200 families and a mile of diapers, a few minutes bus ride from campus. A trailer is not precisely a dream house, but it's home. It meets an emergency, and the rent averages about $25 a month. This cooperative grocery store was set up by veterans of the trailer colony. It undersells chain stores on most items. A storm shed helps make the trailer livable in winter, for Syracuse is in a belt of heavy snowfall. The bathhouse and other conveniences are down the street. Life is a little rugged, a little cramped, sometimes more than a little hectic. For the wife who stays home while her husband studies for his diploma and a job, this is a means to an end, a temporary pattern of living. For the husband, this is the experience of life educators insist is essential background for a liberal education. To prove them right, married students rank above the bachelors, and those with children get the top grades. What to do if there isn't money enough to meet the budget? Well, if you don't have a bank account or a rich aunt, you get a job. The university has a list, all the way from working in a brickyard to waiting on table. There's a tradition here of work your way. Before the war, 70% of Syracuse students were earning while learning, and 1 out of 3 was entirely self-supporting. But it's tougher than it used to be. A year at Syracuse used to cost about $900. Now it's up about 30%, while student wages have not kept pace. Of course, if you're an independent businessman, a hot dog impresario, it's a cinch. Here's a cauldron of campus activities. The old castle, which houses the daily paper, The Orange. Editor and business manager are veterans, and this is typical. There has been a resurgence of campus activities with the boom, and the veterans have most of the good jobs, to the dismay of the co-eds who had kept these activities going during the war. What do the veterans study? Why, everything the university offers. All branches, all courses are jammed. Some are working with grim concentration towards a degree or a job. They find their service training useful now. They are defter, quicker because of wartime skills. They know how to tackle a job and get it done. But some have a broader purpose. They scan the records left by scholars dead and gone for answers to haunting questions they have talked over with other young men in foxholes and barracks around the earth. They have a lively interest in history, perhaps because some of them have been helping to make history. They have a deep curiosity about the world and the way it wags and what mankind has made of it. They would like to do the job a little better tomorrow. This is the beginning of a big parade, growing bigger. There never was anything like it anywhere in all history, but it may have only started. Almost an entire generation may parade under the academic elms of America's universities. In time, 10 million young men and women will have realized a dream of their fathers. This is a land, a people that never has set a limit on enlightenment. This is America.